You made a fair move. Screaming about it can't help you.
Let him have it. It's not wise to upset a Wookiee.
But, sir, nobody worries about upsetting a droid.
It's because a droid don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose. Wookiees are known to do that.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and I brought back a longtime favorite of all the viewers, obviously a favorite of mine, Aaron Sparrow, comic book writer, editor, and now officially one of the writers for HBO Max's Young Justice Season 4. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Wes?
I'm doing, well, not quite as good as you. I'm not a writer on Young Justice, but I'm doing all right here in the Philippines.
Well, give it time. We'll get you on there.
I do want to say congratulations. That was big news.
Thank you. Yeah, it's actually really an honor. The first two seasons of that show were like I watched them repeatedly, like just again and again and again. When they were on Netflix, I just would run them in the background even when I was working on stuff. So to get to come on to season 4 and and contribute an episode was just an absolute dream come true.
Well, let's talk about something else that you probably watched over and over and over. It probably isn't a dream come true to talk about it anymore. We talked about the sequel trilogy to Disney Star Wars. You and I grew up on Star Wars. We're pretty much the same age. We're definitely the same generation. Mind-blowing, groundbreaking, life-changing cinema. Changed the way that movies were made, changed the way you thought about heroes. But it feels like Disney Star Wars has been lacking. Like they don't get what it is that made Star Wars special in the first place. They think it's the aesthetics. They think it's the spaceships. They think it's the sound effects. They don't realize it's always been the characters and the story and the hero's journey. And it feels like they've been doing a lot of deflecting, Aaron.
It's interesting because when they when they announced the sequel trilogy and the first images started to come out, I remember having a discussion with James Waugh about what we were seeing, and it was like, oh, it's kind of disappointing that they're just going back to TIE fighters and stormtroopers and those sorts of things. Like Lucas had always said that when you do another series, like another series of episodes, you should try to do something different. That was always kind of, and whether or not you liked the prequels, he did take things in a different direction. He did try and tell a different story, whether you think that was successful or not. And so we're kind of like, oh wow, they're just kind of like retreading. But we understood too, when you pay $4 billion for a property and you're going to try and relaunch it, that there's the tendency to go, okay, well, what do people like? What do people expect to see? So we need to kind of do those things. But you could have taken, Star Wars is so rich in its expanded universe lore, all the things that they could have drawn from. And Kathleen Kennedy pretty famously said, well, this isn't like Marvel. We don't have all this source material to draw from. And everybody who had read all the novels and the comic books and things like that was like, excuse me, look right here.
We have no strong female characters.
Yeah, there's tons. There's so many. So it's really interesting that they kind of took in that direction. But you could have done anything. You could have done a revised Mandalorian Empire attacking the galaxy. You could have done something with the crime syndicates. You could have had Luke Skywalker involved, but he doesn't necessarily, the Skywalker family drama doesn't necessarily need to be the central point of Star Wars. And, you had somebody like J.J. Abrams come in, and, J.J. for being a strong visual director, I don't think anybody can really dispute that. He's not really a storyteller, and he's not a visionary when it comes to, he basically just regurgitates things that he's seen, that he's enjoyed. So it probably seemed like the perfect idea. Like, we're going to reboot Star Wars, so let's bring in a guy who can, just regurgitate what people have seen. And that's exactly what we got with The Force Awakens, unfortunately, and it was kind of all downhill from there.
So we know The Force Awakens worldwide box office was $2 billion. The The Last Jedi is $1.3 billion, and then finally The Rise of Skywalker ends up being $1 billion. So progressively lower. Disney wants to pump the brakes, admit they had a mistake. This is what Bob Iger said in 2018. I made the timing decision, and as I look back, I think the mistake that I made, I take the blame, was a little too much too fast. You can expect some slowdown, but that doesn't mean we're not going to make films. But I think we're going to be a little bit more careful about volume and timing. And the buck stops here with me, kind of blaming saturation. And recently, Lucasfilm executive James Waugh kind of decided to dive into this. You'll notice that their tune has changed now that we've had some success with the Mandalorian and some of the other projects there on Disney Plus. This is what he had to say about oversaturation. It's not a problem anymore. Are we worried about oversaturation? I think we're always very thoughtful and cautious about how do we keep Star Wars specialness in this landscape. We're mindful, but this wasn't one of those instances where we had our spidey senses on a lot because we felt this was such a new offering. Kind of talking about the the Star Wars visionary kind of thing. I'll be honest with you, Aaron. I don't think oversaturation has ever been a problem with Star Wars. As a mega Star Wars fan, I will take as much. It doesn't even have to be good Star Wars, competent Star Wars as you can give me, whether it be in comic books, cartoons, movies, video games, whatever. Toys, if it's good Star Wars, well, it doesn't even have to be good Star Wars, to be okay Star Wars. I want some more. I don't think oversaturation has ever been a problem, but it's clear with what Bob Iger said initially, and obviously what James Waugh has said recently, they don't understand what the problem was.
I think they do. I mean, honestly, I think that Bob Iger, for all of what people might point to as his faults, I think that he did have sort of a canny understanding of where they had gone wrong. But in the corporate world, you can't say that. You can't come out and say, well, obviously we put the wrong person in charge. Obviously there was no plan. Obviously this turned into a huge cluster, and we need to completely refocus. They can't come out and admit that they were wrong in their approach. So it has to be more of a corporate, and that's what a leader does. A leader takes the responsibility for the failure, and really he should, because he's the person who directed Kathleen Kennedy be in charge. He's this person who supported her, but he can't throw her under the bus. And politically, he definitely can't throw a female executive under the bus. So he has to take the blame onto himself, and he has to kind of like shift it to we just did too much too fast. But you're right, that's not the problem. We will take as much Star Wars as you can give us, as long as it is competent, recognizable Star Wars. During the prequel trilogy, we had we had comics, we had video games coming out all the time. Dark Horse was killing it. You had John Ostrander and Jander Sema doing the Republic series that took place in between all of the movies, and told a lot of backstory, and they were creating great characters like Quinlan Vos. Just things that fans just ate up. It was a
Clone
and then
Wars.
after the prequels, when we got to Clone Wars, Star Wars was still selling like crazy. People loved that Clone Wars era. The cartoon started off kind of rocky, but it got found its footing. People love it.
You watch Clone Wars, right?
Yeah, I loved it.
That movie's terrible.
The movie's not good.
Probably the worst Star Wars movie ever, including the sequel trilogy. In the first two seasons
No, I
of Clone
disagree
Wars,
there. The Last Jedi is the worst Star Wars movie ever.
Hey, Jiro the Hutt, man. I'm just putting it out there.
Well,
but if you watch
you know what? No, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna agree with you. It's the worst Star Wars movie ever, because the sequels are not Star Wars movies. they're just movies with Star Wars pasted over it. But yeah, so okay, worst Star Wars movie.
those first two seasons of Clone Wars aren't all that good.
No, it took them time to find their footing.
But people stuck around because it was Star Wars. It didn't even have to really be good Star Wars, but it was recognizable. You knew where the characters were. You knew where the story was going, and you knew they were building on something. And that patience and the willingness to stay along for the ride ends up paying off, because at season 3, it really takes off. They really start building up Ahsoka Tano. You have a really cool new heroine within the Star Wars universe, and you see Anakin in a new light. You see how he got his scar, and some really cool stuff happens, and Clone Wars ends up being really, really good for about 4 seasons.
Yeah, you get Asajj Ventress. There's all kinds of female characters that have depth and are interesting and are flawed. So they have all of these things that like hook you in. It was really a great time, and the merchandise was selling through the roof. I mean, they were still able to sell big $150 ATTE vehicles. And people ate them up. You couldn't find them on the shelves. People were just grabbing them, and buying multiples, because people just loved what they were getting so much that they wanted the merch from it.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, hey, we would have taken more Star Wars. If you had a live-action Star Wars show, I would have kept watching that. If you would have had another cartoon out that was out regularly on Cartoon Network, I would have watched that too. I have an insatiable appetite for Star Wars. I love the universe. It's my favorite thing.
I grew up with it. I've spent an ungodly amount of money on products from it. So that's always funny, is when I say something about I didn't enjoy the sequel trilogy, and someone will come back to me and be like, "Oh, you're just you're not a real Star Wars fan." And I'm like, "Let me show you this picture of the full-sized, or the giant Millennium Falcon that I bought from Toys R Us. Not the toy one, the big display that they had hanging over the section when they were re-releasing the original films. They were doing the special editions. I tracked that down and I bought that Millennium Falcon because I love Star Wars so much. Let me show you bins upon bins of action figures from Star Wars that I have. Let me show you, tell me I'm not a real Star Wars fan. Here's all the helmets that I own. Here's all the statues that I own.
And Disney will act like it's only a certain portion of the fans, the fandom menace, what do they want to call it? They use it as a kind of a pejorative against a certain demographic of fans, that they're the only ones that didn't appreciate the sequel trilogy. When you look at the box office receipts, slashed in half, at least half the audience said, no mas, we ain't coming back for another one. And then you look at what George Lucas has said about that sequel trilogy, not exactly high praise. If you look at what Mark Hamill, obviously the actor behind Luke Skywalker, said essentially when he was in the Last Jedi, he had to act like he was playing a brand new character because the Luke Skywalker he was portraying in the movie was not Luke Skywalker.
No, he absolutely was not. Mark's absolutely correct. He was playing what, Rian Johnson didn't dig into the character of Luke Skywalker. He decided what he wanted Luke Skywalker to do and then told Mark Hamill, hey, here's the role that you're playing. And, Mark objected. I think there's a pretty famous quote out there of Mark saying, I fundamentally disagree with everything that you have done with my character. He was trying to warn us in all the press briefings. There's even the moment where he says that, this movie's not really about Luke Skywalker. And Kathleen Kennedy disagrees with him. Oh, this movie's very much about Luke Skywalker on stage. And then Mark's like, oh, wow, it's refreshing to hear that. And you can just feel the sarcasm dripping off.
I must have missed that part.
Yeah, exactly. It's really,
so
we laugh, but it's just, we laugh out of pain of seeing, this franchise that we loved just kind of taken out into a field and shot twice in the back of the head by Rian Johnson.
So obviously we've heard from George Lucas, who does have some regret for selling the franchise. We heard from Mark Hamill, whose career was made from the franchise, knows the character Luke Skywalker better than anyone. He disagreed. Well, they're not the only ones. We've got a book. I think it's already come out. It's by J.W. Rinsler. It's about Howard Kazanjian, a producer's life about the production of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And we've got some quotes from Star Wars editor Marcia Lucas. And these interviews that are in this book actually took place between The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. So they do not even include what happens in The Rise of Skywalker. It's only the first two movies in the sequel trilogy. And this is what Marcia had to say. I like Kathleen. Speaking of Kathleen Kennedy, I always liked her. She was full of beans. She was really smart and really bright, really wonderful woman. And I like her husband, Frank. I like them a lot. Now that she's running Lucasfilm and making movies, it seems to me that Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams don't have a clue about Star Wars. They don't get it. And J.J. Abrams is writing these stories. When I saw that movie where they kill Han Solo, I was furious. I was furious when they killed Han Solo. Absolutely, positively, there was no rhyme or reason to it. I thought, you don't get the Jedi story. You don't get the magic of Star Wars. You're getting rid of Han Solo. She continues on in this quote. They have Luke disintegrate. They killed Han Solo. They killed Luke Skywalker, and they don't have Princess Leia anymore. And they're spitting out movies every year, and they think it's important to appeal to a woman's audience. So now their main character is this female who's supposed to have Jedi powers, but we don't know how she got Jedi powers or who she is. It sucks. The storylines are terrible, just terrible, awful. You can quote me, J.J. Abrams, Kathleen Kennedy, talk to me. Pretty powerful stuff, and quite a rebuke on the first two films. Of course, I guess we kind of learned a little bit about Rey Skywalker. She's a Palpatine in the end. I have a feeling that Marcia Lucas probably wasn't extremely impressed by that reveal either.
I doubt that she saw that Marcia Lucas,
since it comes out of nowhere,
Skywalker, and then said, "Oh, well, this fixed everything." I take back what I said. Clearly, this was all mapped out from the beginning, and what a compelling story, and what compelling characters. Yeah, that definitely did not happen.
No, it's crazy, and these are the same exact issues that the fans had with this. Why are you killing these characters off? Who is this? Where do these powers come from? And in the end, it all, it's all a house of cards, and it all falls and collapses in on itself because there's no foundation to it. They never put in the work to build the characters. They only put in the work to kill off characters.
Yeah, to kill off the characters, to show off that these new characters are the best ever. But these new characters, you didn't make them characters. They're just cardboard cutouts of characters. There's nothing about Rey that's interesting. Not one single thing. There's nothing about Finn that Finn starts out like you're like, oh, hey, this could be a compelling story. This stormtrooper who turns his back and maybe he's going to become a Jedi, and what'll that look like? And there's some things that you could build into his backstory, like right off the bat. There's some ideas there that you can play with, even with Oscar Isaac, who is such an amazing actor and has so much charm, and they do nothing with either one of them because it's all about Rey. And I said this even after The Last Jedi. I said that the best thing that you could do for the third film is turn Rey to the dark side, and then set up another trilogy of films. You flip it so that you redeem Kylo and you turn Rey to the dark side, and then you can kind of set up a salvaging trilogy afterwards.
And then reveal Finn was a Force user.
Yeah, and reveal Finn's a Force user, and then Finn has to go up against Rey. And you could, it wouldn't make those first two movies in the sequel trilogy any better, but you could maybe salvage the whole. But they were never going to do that, and I even said when I was talking about that on Twitter, I said they're never going to do that because unfortunately, Rey is Kathleen Kennedy's self-insert, and she is representative of all little girls. And once you make a character representative and not a character, you can't do anything interesting with them. Because if you turn Rey to the dark side, then what does that say about all the little girls who look up to Rey? They're going to cry, and we're not going to be able to sell Rey merch. So you're not serving the story. You're serving what a committee has sat down and said what we need to do to market this way. But in the end, you haven't satisfied anybody. You haven't given girls a compelling hero. They'll outgrow Rey quickly. These movies won't be remembered. People won't look back fondly on them. They'll discover other media with actual compelling characters that are interesting, that they feel good about, and that they'll carry those with them. But Rey is not going to be one of those characters because Rey wasn't allowed to be a character.
Rose Tico is essentially sexually assaulting Finn on the battlefield. Nobody to look up to. I was so happy for Kelly Marie Tran before Last Jedi came out, because you'd see her like on the red carpet and she was just so excited to be in a Star Wars movie, and she had just like this infectious like happiness and joy, and I was just like, oh man, I can't wait to see her on the screen, and like, wow, how good for her. And then the movie came out and I was like, oh, poor Kelly Marie Tran. They really did you a disservice, didn't they? They Jar Jar Binks her ass.
Yeah, and so her and Holdo, like these are going to go down as two of the most hated characters in Star Wars. And what did you do? How does that help representation? How does that help women? That you handed them two characters that you did nothing with. It doesn't help them at all.
At least Laura Dern already had the Jurassic Park movies. What's that movie she did with Whiplash?
Oh yeah, Laura Dern's got. I mean, her career is fine. Like she's got.
Was that 9 weeks?
Yeah, and what is that? Blue Orchid? Is that
Wild Horses? Something like that.
For Wild Orchid? Yes. I don't know.
Something like that.
I didn't come on prepared to.
It's one of those movies on Skinamax that would come on at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, but she's done all sorts of things for throughout her career, and so she'll be fine. But like for Kelly Marie Tran, who was just kind of like, this was her first big role. And yeah, I mean, she did Raya the Last Dragon. She was the voice actress in that, and she did a solid job in that. So, I'd like to see her in other things. I think she's adorable, and I think that, she seems like a really nice person. And it's a shame that Rian Johnson just did everybody in The Last Jedi just such a huge disservice, from Mark Hamill all the way down.
Oh, he certainly screwed over J.J. Abrams pretty good, too. And who's the other? Colin Trevorrow, who's supposed to write the third movie and direct it?
Yeah, when he saw what the final product
pulled the rug right out from underneath him. That movie that you're writing, you can't make that one anymore because it doesn't make any sense. All those characters are dead.
Yeah, because I thought, I thought I would be, I would be clever and I would subvert expectations. Aren't I an imp?
There was already an edgy Star Wars movie. It's called Empire Strikes Back. Get out of here, edgy boy.
It's not even, and Last Jedi isn't even edgy. Like there's no, it doesn't feel dark. It doesn't feel, it's so bland. Watching it, probably the worst sin that, when I wasn't angry, I was bored. And then the only time that it even remotely engaged me was the Snoke confrontation, and then that quickly fell apart. And they kind of like, I was kind of like, where is this going? And then they have the moment where Kylo Ren has the line about like, both sides are being manipulated by the bankers, and they keep this conflict going so they can enrich themselves. And at that point I was kind of like, okay, I don't like the first half of this movie, but maybe Rey's going to join Kylo and they're going to do something different. They're going to go after.
They're going to fight the banking industry.
Yeah, and I don't know what that would look like, but at least that's something different.
It's not what we got going right now. That's a good idea.
That's not what happened, because Rey can't, she can't do anything interesting or compelling or even remotely edgy. She has to just be the perfect hero with no flaws. I mean, Luke has plenty of flaws. Luke's kind of whiny. He's kind of entitled. He flies off the handle and leaves when Yoda tells him that it's the worst decision he could make. But he's got to go save his friends. I mean, it's born out of an altruism of wanting to save his friends, but still, he puts them in greater peril.
Puts the entire universe in danger.
Yeah, and so he's definitely
for a couple
got flaws,
people.
But Rey doesn't really have any. She's just supposed to be likable by everybody.
The only part in that second movie that I felt anything towards was when Finn was in that speeder on that salt planet. He's like,
it seemed like he was going to have a moment
take this out. I'm going to save all my friends. So I was like, man, at least this guy's going out like a champion. Nope. I was like, are you kidding me?
No, Rose slams into him.
What was I thinking?
You thought, your expectation was that you were going to get a heroic moment in a Star Wars film, and Rian Johnson said, I'm going to subvert that expectation right up from under you. I'm going to have Rose slam into him at high speed in a crash that most likely should have killed both of them to save him. And why? Because she wanted a little smooch.
Love trumps evil.
Yeah, love, that's how we'll win. It's like, oh, is love going to stop the giant death laser that's pointed right at your entire group? She had no idea Rey was going to show up to. Well, maybe she did. Maybe.
What was it, Rey? It was Luke Skywalker's body projected across the galaxy.
Oh, that's right. And then
so they could escape out the back, even though they had no ships.
Yeah. What was?
Let's not talk about that part.
Let's talk about all the lines in the movie that are just there because they got to a point where they're like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Okay, just explain it away with a line. Oh, well, we ran a decloaking scan, and now we see that these ships are escaping. It's like, what's a decloaking scan? You didn't set that up anywhere else in the movie. If you go back to Empire, everything that happens is set up earlier in the film. They stack it. That's the way that storytelling is supposed to work. Set up and payoff. And there's none of that in Last Jedi. It's just a bunch of crazy random happenstance that you're supposed to swallow down and clap and say, give me more product, please.
But what we've been talking about, obviously, the second half of this video, that's what was wrong with Star Wars. It was never the oversaturation. It wasn't the release schedule. If you were putting out competent Star Wars movies, one a year, people would have said, well, I want more. If you put out 2 competent Star Wars movies a year, people would continue to say, I want more. Because there's an overwhelming appetite for a good, competent Star Wars movie that makes sense in canon and really honors the characters in the universe. That was the problem. This oversaturation, it's misdirection. It's, let's blame it on something without identifying what really happened here. And we know that Kathleen Kennedy is getting an extension. She's not going anywhere. And then as long as she's in charge, you really can't trust almost anything unless it's a Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau project. And, Dave Filoni's, he made a couple stinkers here and there. Well,
I think that, her extension, I don't know how much power she's actually going to have. There's just things that you do in the corporate world. She might not have any creative control whatsoever. It may just be one of those things to save face both for the company and for her. And honestly, who else wants to take that job at this point? They would probably offer it to Favreau, and he's like, yeah, no, I want to do other things too. Like, I don't want to be in charge of all of Star Wars for the rest of my life or however long this contract's going to run. So, it's probably one of those things where it's like, well, we've got somebody in here and, she's not doing the best job, but she's doing a job. And as long as we keep her away from the creative side of it and keep her away from social media and keep her away from interviews, maybe it'll just be okay. She'll just kind of be the silent figurehead. So I'm not.
It's like what the dad said in Grumpy Old Men. crap in one hand and hope in the other, Aaron. See which one fills up first. She's
Absolutely
still in
true.
charge. You can see what she's doing with Indiana Jones. We're basically going to hand over not the Indiana Jones title, but the hat and the mantle over to a new female character. Looks like in the next movie. At least that's what's being reported. Did you see what my dog just did?
No. What did he do?
She just it's a she. She just took my throne again. She just got my chair. I posted a picture of this, and I don't think anyone believed me. There you go. Look at her. She's taunting me from behind. Oh, she's gonna get it.
Well, you know what?
She's too cute.
No, she's hearing about Indiana Jones being replaced with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and she's saying now is women's time. I'm taking the throne.
Yeah,
Kathleen Kennedy's in charge, and so am I.
Kathleen Kennedy made me lose my throne to a puppy, cute, adorable beagle puppy.
You know what I do want to say though? Star Wars Visions just came out on Disney Plus, and like all anthologies, it's hit or miss. But when it's hit, it's very, very good. There's some really good episodes in there. I have not completed all of them, but like the first two, I really, really liked. And it just goes to show you the difference between having actual creative people with a vision that aren't interfered with on a project versus committee thinking, like the Lucasfilm story group with their whiteboard of all the things that we need to include, dinosaurs and diversity, and nowhere in there is there strong character or plot. None of those things are important in the things that they're putting up in the whiteboard. So I think Star Wars Visions is a step in the right direction. I don't know if we'll keep going in that direction. I don't know who was responsible for that, but I think that we're going to get some hit and miss Star Wars for a while. And the sad thing is that I just don't feel about it and so many of these franchises the way that I used to. They've really pushed me to the point of indifference. So I'll watch things and I'll check them out and I'll see if I like them. But it's really more of a choosing your items at the buffet kind of thing now than it is enjoying the whole feast. And that seems to be what's really disappointing about the way entertainment is heading, is that it's kind of pushed all the fandom to that point.
Well, definitely expect Aaron and myself in the future. I watch too many cartoons, but if it's Disney Star Wars, it's going to be on Disney Plus or whatever, and it's live action, we will be reviewing all the episodes, whether it be The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, and all that stuff that's coming up in the near future, as well as the Marvel stuff on Disney Plus as well, because Aaron's a nerd like that, and he's got as big a crush on the Star Wars universe as I do.